Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are going to be reacting to Superman Red Sun. This is a donation reward for Sweet Venom, so thank you as always. And yeah, we started my adventures with Superman this week, so why not get to this? Superman Red Sun is a movie that takes place in an AU from the classic Superman we know and love. I believe the story is basically what if Superman landed in the Soviet Union rather than America? Basically leading to, well, a Russian Superman. I believe Wonder Woman is also in this movie. I don't know how many other, classic DC characters are, but I believe Wonder Woman is. Other than that, I don't really know the story of this. I know this is based off of the comics and everything. There was a comic series or whatever of Red Sun and how that would go down. I have to assume he's still obviously a good guy. Though there could be some moral differences, the things he's willing to do. Maybe this Superman is maybe a little more aggressive, or hell, even more peaceful than regular Superman. There's no real knowledge that I have for this. I've seen different variations on the character, so it wouldn't be the first time seeing a very different take. I'm just curious as to where this is going to go. But yeah, I thought since we did start the series this week, why not do a Superman movie as well? Just sounded like a fun idea. Double Superman for this week. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we got here, and hopefully we end up enjoying it. So let's just get this going. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, before anything, I was looking up in between. I wanted to see, what kind of differences there were from the comic. And it seems like a lot of it was very similar. It ran along a lot of the same basic story beats. But there were some notable differences. For example, in the original comics, it was apparently a 3-issue comic series. In the original comics, Luthor had tried out one or two other plans to combat Superman and everything during his tyrannical reign, including one that involved basically a team of super monsters that included Doomsday and the like. So apparently that was included in the comics, but just I guess maybe due to time constraints and changes that had to be made, they just took that out for the movie. Another big difference is the ending. Here in the movie, we see Luthor relinquish his title as president, handing it over to his vice president, James Olsen, and retiring, while Superman, now as a just average guy, watches from the crowd and all, pleased with where the world has gone after, realizing how shit he had become. But despite all of that, the comics ended very differently. Luthor, for example, was the one who was basically behind Superman coming to his senses. Instead of Lois just coming out with the shrunken bit of the city in the in the dome and everything, she comes out with a letter from Lex that that basically just says the same thing. It's like, why don't you put the whole world in a bottle? And so that changes his mind in the comics, instead of just it being Lois with the bottled up piece of the city and all. The same thing happens with Brainiac and all, except instead of Superman stopping it, Lex Luthor actually stops Brainiac from inside. Superman still takes it into space and everything. All of that's still the same, but it's actually Lex who stops it in the end. There's also a resistance called the Batmen, who follow in the original Batman's footsteps and basically take control of the Soviet Union following Superman's apparent death. But also, Lex Luthor just literally takes over the world after that. He basically takes Superman and Brainiac's philosophies, combines them with his own ideas, and creates something called Lutherism. He basically turns the world into a global United States and brings about global peace and stability. And it's like, okay, why the hell not? Apparently this creates a lot of scientific advancements. Luthor becomes, like, not quite immortal, but lives for a lot longer than a normal human should. He lives for over 1,000 years, and when he does eventually die, which, by the way, Lois also apparently lives for that long, that's when it reveals that Superman survived. He's attending the funeral, not a transfer of power and everything. And Lois doesn't actually realize it's him. She just kind of, like, has a deja vu moment. But then there's a big ending twist to the series. It goes billions of years into the future after that. The sun has become a red giant and is literally tearing apart the Earth. And then we meet Lex Luthor and Lois Lane's descendant, Jor-El, who sends his infant son Kal-El into the past, showing that the Kal-El we know, the Superman in the entire comic series, was from billions of years in the future originally, and was a descendant of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane. It's like, Jesus. The amount of, like, time travel paradox shit that creates is insane. But I also read up on some thoughts about this, and specifically I saw the Russian thoughts on at least the movie. I don't know about the comic, but one person mentioned about the ending twist not being preserved and everything. But a lot of the takes from Russian media and whatnot seem to just be negative. Like, they're hating on the movie because they feel it paints a bad view of Russia, which it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. And it's not just Russia as a whole, it's specifically talking about Soviet Russia, which, yes, was undeniably bad. But it's not like it's trying to, like, paint America as, like, this savior state, like, just being, like, in every way better. No, it shows America as being wrong, too. It shows that America is just as bad. In fact, if you're supposed to take anyone's specific side in this, it's Wonder Woman's. You're supposed to see both sides as toxic, war hungry, and immoral. Both sides are unquestionably in the wrong. And in the end, they come together to change that. Luther stepping down and not choosing to go into creating technology and all, I think works better than the actual ending to the comics, because it shows that he understood his own wrongdoings and is instead choosing to step away from that, letting Olsen take over where he failed. While we don't know exactly what happens to the Soviet Union after this, we know that America is going to actively lend a hand to help them, and they might end up going into a better place themselves because of it. Not because America's saving them, but because both sides are actively choosing to work together and understand each other, rather than have a dick measuring contest, basically. Throughout this film, you see that, like, Superman's goals, his intentions are good, but the way he's going about them, his manner of trying to achieve those intentions, is unquestionably evil. Like, he makes this point at one point in the film about, like, they've very rarely actually done anything that's caused bloodshed, that they've rarely done anything that's caused people to die, and that's actively untrue. And we have seen by that point that it's actively untrue. They've done multiple attacks on these other countries and stuff, and are ruling by fear. They're instilling fear by terrorizing these other countries and forcefully taking them over. It's made a very big point of that he is not that different from Stalin. He took over and he killed Stalin initially because he was trying to save the people that Stalin was enslaving. Especially after his childhood friend died in his arms. He got angry, he got upset, he confronted Stalin, and he killed him straight up. But then he ended up becoming no better. He ended up becoming just another Stalin. With some slightly different actions, some slightly different takes, but not enough to where it's like, it actually does good. And I feel like this can be said for a lot of real world history too. I would say that most people out there, most government leaders throughout the world and throughout history, have genuinely thought they were doing the right thing. Have genuinely believed that they were trying to help. Trying to be good people for the safety, the security, the just livelihoods of the people under their command. They're trying to do good, and they have good intent. But the problem is, good intent doesn't mean anything if your actions go against it. If you're trying to save and protect people, killing people, even if they're quote-unquote enemies, goes entirely against your motivations, your ideals, your intent. It doesn't matter if you're committing atrocities to achieve that goal. And we see in this that Superman fell into the same trap that he was upset at Stalin for doing. He may not have enslaved people at first, but eventually he did. The reprogramming, the mind control he was inputting with Brainiac's help and all, Like, it's unquestionable Brainiac was manipulating him, but without question, it was still Superman's choice to do that. He was still enslaving people, just in a different way. He was taking away their free will. And he only saw at the end, after being talked to by Lois, that that was a mistake. And I like that Lois is the one as well, instead of like handing over a letter from Lex. I also prefer that Lois was the one who spoke truth to him. Because a lot of this film was, let's be honest, a dick measuring contest between Lex and Superman. So the fact that it's almost kind of a third party, although she is obviously aligned with Lex, being his wife in this universe, it's almost kind of a third party situation. Someone else who just wants things to be better. She just comes in and talks to Superman, and she's already been upset at Lex for various things he's done. So it's very clear that she's not just playing favorites or anything. But she just talks to him. She shows him the city. These people that were basically at the start of a lot of this with Brainiac. Early on in Superman's reign. And she tells him, look at these people who are still here in this glass dome, this bubble. Why aren't you changing this? She's like, Brainiac could have put this back. And he's like, no, that wouldn't happen. And Brainiac's like, no, that would have happened. You just didn't want it to happen. And it allowed Superman to finally come to terms with what he was doing, to realize how far he had fallen. It's a very different take on Superman. I've seen Superman stories where he has been a bad guy. And like I said, I don't usually like those. This one is more digestible because while he is a bad guy in this, while he does unquestionably do terrible things, he doesn't realize he's doing it, and eventually is manipulated into being worse by Brainiac. And once he does realize that he is, like, has been doing all of this, he's basically like, no, I'm done. We can't do this anymore. And then the entire fight against Brainiac at the end happens. But yeah, it's like, once he realizes he's been doing wrong, he doesn't try to justify it. He doesn't try to make excuses. He realizes that he was wrong and is like, oh shit, well, I can't do this anymore. The issue is obviously how long and how much effort it took to get him to know it was wrong. Like, even Wonder Woman turning her back on him didn't help. He was just so obsessed and so, basically, in a way, brainwashed. Being raised in the Soviet Union, practically under Stalin's thumb, he was basically raised into this kind of idea, this kind of belief that made him, even after turning his back on Stalin, still made him follow in those footsteps. And again, it's not trying to, like, say that America is, like, this amazing place either. It makes a very big point of pointing out how bad America tends to have it. With all of the poverty and pain and deaths and everything. It's like, it makes a point multiple times in this film that America's not actually that much better. So it's not just like this propaganda film, which this very easily could have been. In fact, I kind of feel that the comic almost is more of propaganda, anti-Russian and more pro-America propaganda, considering the comic, like, has Lex establish a global United States It's like, I like this ending better because it feels more fair. It feels more like real than just, I mean, real's probably the wrong word. You know what I mean. It doesn't feel as like terrible. I guess it technically would be more real to actually have the comic ending, considering how America tends to be. Um, but yeah, you understand what I'm saying and all here. It was a very interesting story with very interesting takes on all these characters. Definitely handling them a lot different than other media has in the past. Um, I mean, making Batman a terrorist is wild. um, Wonder Woman was, I think, the only character who was practically the same. The only difference being that she was a lesbian instead of bisexual. I think that's really the only active difference with Wonder Woman in this. Otherwise, she was pretty much entirely the same. Like, this is how Wonder Woman acts, and this is how she would believe in everything. And she would definitely have a lot of issues with how things are being handled here. Plus, it's clear that she, in this universe, never met Steve Trevor, never had a lot of connections outside of Themyscira. So, her also losing all trust in men and everything because of the one connection she really had proving to be terrible. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's, I feel like, again, that is how it would go with Wonder Woman, with Diana. So yeah, I really I really like this. It wasn't the best animated DC movie I've seen. I've seen better, but I really enjoyed this one. It definitely gets you thinking. And again, I like that unlike the comics, it seems to be a little more fair and show the darkness of both America and the Soviet Union here. That it's not just propaganda to try and make America look amazing. Also, the use of certain phrases in here, like America first. It's like, again, I know that phrase didn't come from Trump, but its original use was for the same reasons, the same issues and everything. It's a terrible phrase and is steeped in a lot of horrible bigotry, hatred, and violence. Let's just put it that way. So the fact that we heard it here is insane. But again, it's showing also that the American side of things were wrong too. That Lex and them were in the wrong too. Also, Travis Willingham as Superior Man was kind of hilarious. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this, and I would love to hear what you have to think. Tell me your thoughts on this film down in the comments below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.